My name is Mr. Weed. I'm here to talk to you about the people who used to live here. So let's go back a bit in time. When did the first people move into this area? Yep. 1659. Well, there were some English people who moved in a little before then, but we have to go a lot farther back. Well, no, I'm talking about people who first came to this land. Native Americans. And okay, long before 1600. How far back do we need to go? People have been living here. What, were there people living here when the pyramids were built 4,000 years ago? Yes. There were people living here 6,000 years ago? Yes. More? How many? Yeah? 9,000. We have evidence. We have bones and other things from people living here over 9,000 years. But we think people first moved into this area in about 10 to 12,000 years ago. Before that, why couldn't anybody live here before 12,000 years ago? Yeah? Because of wolves? Yeah, well, that would be a reason you might not want to live here. But what else? Yeah?
They haven't found it yet?
They hadn't found it, but they found it by following the animals into here. But what was over us, a mile high above us? Yeah. No, the dinosaurs are a lot further back than that. Yep. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah. What's that? Water in one very cold form. Ice. There was an ice age here 12,000 years ago. Actually, 20,000 years ago. Lasted till 12,000 years ago. Okay. And the ice was so thick it was a mile high. Imagine ice that thick. And it went all the way out to Block Island. So nobody could live here before the ice from the Ice Age began to melt. And that happened about 12,000 years ago. And as the ice melted and more of the shoreline became exposed, animals moved in like caribou, and then people followed the animals. Why? Why did people want to follow animals here? Yeah. They would need them for food, absolutely. And this was a good place for food, because there were a lot of animals here. And what could you eat from the water here? Fish, yeah. Crabs, right? Shellfish, quahogs, yeah. Octopus, octopi, right, yeah. Snails, yeah, you name it. There was a lot of food here, so many people moved into this area and began living here. And what did they live in? Did they build houses? Where are the houses for all the people who lived here for 8 to 10,000 years? Do we see any houses here? No? Let me show you a house. Here's a picture of how people were living here. What do you see? What kind of buildings did they have? Like huts? Yeah. We call those huts weetus. That's a weetu. See all those weetus? And they were made out of small trees, saplings that you could bend over and tie together and then cover them with bark or mats. Were those houses? Yeah, there's a dog there. They had dogs. Were those houses comfortable to live in the wintertime? Yes, they were. The English said these were warmer than the houses that they built. Okay? So people who lived here knew how to live here successfully and had many villages around here. This is a village a little farther north into Swansea that we know about, but there were villages all up and down the coast here. Over 100,000 people lived here, we think, when in the late 1500s, some traders coming across in boats from France and Portugal and England landed on the coast, the Atlantic coast up north of Boston there, and somebody got sick. Was it an English person or a native person? A native person got sick. And then, like with any epidemic, what happens when one person gets sick? Everybody gets sick, just like COVID. It spreads, okay? And unlike COVID, people died very quickly, okay, in a matter of days. We think of something like smallpox. It wasn't smallpox, but something like that. So lots of people along the coast who had lived here for 10,000 years were suddenly dying. So when the English came, when did the English come here to stay? What year was that? A little before 1949. Yeah? Yeah. 1620, okay? That's the date we all learn about in school when the English came to Plymouth. Okay, anybody been to Plymouth Plantation, Patuxent up there? Yeah. So you saw how the English were living when they first got here, okay? So they came, but when they got to Patuxent, there were no native people alive there. They found bones on the ground. So many people had died from the epidemic that there was no one alive to greet them. So they moved in and started building houses, and then they got a visit from somebody who was leading all the people who lived here. Anybody know the name of the guy who was leading the people here? Not the King of England. He was in charge of the English. Anybody else know? Yeah? It's a native person, right? I'll show you a picture of him. Yeah, you know his name? No, he's kind of like their president. They called him the Massasoit. That's like the president. But let me show you a picture. This is the man who led all the native people here in 1620 when the Pilgrims arrived. And his name is that's his title, like president, but his name was Yellowfeather, and the way he would say his name in his language was Usamiquan, okay? If you go look at the monument over there, you will see Usamiquan, all right? But people called him Massasoit. That really wasn't his name. But he lived here, and he got to know the English, who gave him this red horseman's coat and this copper chain necklace. That was a gift that he got from the English because they had just arranged for a treaty to make the English responsible if anybody came against the Pokanoket people here, and they would help the English if anybody came, tried to fight them. Yeah. What is the which? That black animal is a wolf. He was part of the wolf clan, so that's just the skin of the animal and the head. It's not alive. Yeah. But he would wear that to show that he was part of the wolf clan. Okay, good question. All right? So the English gave him that copper chain necklace as a sign of peace between the two groups. And they had a treaty that lasted for over 50 years here, which kept the English from being attacked by any of the other tribes. The Narragansett tribe over on the other side of the bay wanted to move in here, and they couldn't because the English had something that the native people didn't have at first. Anybody know what kind of weapon they had? Guns, right. Yeah, boom, right. And that kept the other tribes from wanting to move in here. So Usamiquan, Yellowfeather, kept this agreement for 50 years, and things went well for that time, and then he died in 1661. After that, his second son, Philip, who was called King Philip, okay, took over, and after a little while, the native people were not happy because the English people were moving in here in great numbers. They were taking over their land, the native land, and they had cows and pigs. And if you're raising corn, what does a cow or a pig do? Yeah, it eats all your corn. And what would happen is the English cows and pigs would get loose, and they would go into the native cornfields and eat all their food. Would you be happy if somebody came and ate all your food? Yeah, you would, yeah. Huh? Yeah. So, when that kept happening, the native people began to say, we need to get these English people out of here. So, they started a war in 1675 called the King Philip Wars. Anybody heard of that? Yeah. And that started, if you go over, you know where the Kickamill Middle School is. Some of you go there, right? Okay. Did you see the sign out in front of the school now? Right on the corner on Child Street. Yeah. Well, next time you go over there, take a look at it and read it, because that's where the war started. Yeah. When did they come here? 1620. And 1621, they had a treaty, and that lasted for 50 years. So by 1675, things were not going well. A war broke out, and the English won the war. So what did they want to do with the native people after they won the war? Make them leave, right. And they did. They drove them out of here. Some of them they killed. Others they put into slavery and sent them to Barbados. It was not good for the native people. And there were no native people left here after the war. Do you see a lot of native people around here today? No. How do you know? How can you tell who's a native person?
Preston, how do you know, Preston?
Right. Do native people walk around looking like this? No. What do they look like? Look like everybody else. Thank you very much. Okay. They look like you and I. Okay. So there are native people who have moved back into the area, about 300 of them, who live around here. And the only way you're going to know who's a native person is if they tell you, or if you're curious and you ask them and they tell you. But a better way to meet the native people is to come right here to the park. Did anybody come here last August? Yes. Okay. Did you meet some native people then? No. Did you hear the drums? Yeah. Did you get to dance? Yes. No? Okay. Well, you'll all have a chance again because we're doing another program here. Just a minute. This was the poster from last year. And you'll get posters for this year. It'll be Sunday, August 7th this year. And we'll hand these out a couple days before the event, okay? That'll remind you. Pardon me? That says Pokanoket Heritage Day. Right. Yeah, well, it'll be Sunday, August 7th. This is last year's poster. I haven't made the posters for this year yet. Okay, but it'll look just like this with some different pictures on there. And you'll get copies of them that you can take home. And that'll remind you to come here on that Sunday afternoon. It's free, and you'll get a chance to listen to the drumming, see some displays, and do some native dancing if you want. They always invite people to do that. And they'll be dressed in regalia. They'll look like the native people that you've used to seeing, okay? So you'll get to see them in their costume. The reason we're doing this is because this is a sacred place. Does anybody have any idea why there's a monument behind me here? That stone over there, yeah. Somebody died and they buried him there. Actually, when did Usamequin, Yellowfeather, die? I just told you.
1659.
Close, 61. There you go, you got it. You're paying attention, okay? So he dies in 1661. Actually, he died about 50 miles north of here in Brookfield, and they carried his body back here, and they buried him here because this was a royal burial ground. This was where all the leaders of the Pokanoket tribe were buried. So they brought the Massasoit Usamequin here and buried him, and he stayed here until 1917, when somebody named Charles Carr, who was the town librarian, decided he was going to come over here and dig up all the graves here. Is that a good thing to do, digging up somebody's grave? Right. Well, he thought because people were stealing things that he should get it out of here. So he dug all around here, okay, 42 grave sites. And that's where many native people were buried. And did he find just bones or what else? Yep. Guns, yeah. Clothing, bits of clothing, yeah. Well, he didn't find any gold, but pots and knives and combs and all kinds of things that were made by the English. They buried everybody here with things that they valued, and a lot of those things were things that they bought from the English. So that's how they knew that these were native burial sites, because the English people didn't bury things with people, but the native people did. So when they got all those things together, they collected them and put them in museums. Yeah? Yes, but he wasn't reburied because his grave was they took everything out of his grave as well, and those were in museums for until about 20 years ago, when some of the tribes went and asked for those things back. Is that a good thing to do, to get things back? No. Well, it's a federal law that if you take something out of a native gravesite, you have to return it to the tribe. And that's what they did. They brought over 600 items, brought them here, and 4 years ago they had a big ceremony and put those 600 items in a concrete vault. You see a picture of it on your pages there. That's what's buried underneath the monument here. Yeah. And where are the bones? Well, there weren't many bones left after 400 years, but the things they were buried with survived. Where's the person? Well, we think some of the remains are in the vault here, but you're not going to find full skeletons and things of that sort. All right. So that's how things got put back here 4 years ago, and the tribes put up this monument. So what I'd like you to do before you head back, you get a chance. How many people have read the inscription over here? Not many of you. Okay. Who would like to read this for the group? Huh? Well, I think you had your hand up first. Are you a good reader? Okay. Okay. Let's bring the camera over. Everybody can hear you.
While memories of this land spark the first fires of his spirit, let the smoke rise and pray full respect to Wampanoag Massasoit,
Massasoit.
Massasoit, 8 Salmonaquan, Yellow Feather, Eastmend, leader of the Wampanoag Nation. His vision and 1621 treat upheld 54 years of peace with early English settlers.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Henry. Let's give him a hand here.
11. One day you go wrong a couple words.
Nice job.